Hi, I'm Chef Lachelle here. Look. I always do that. Hey everyone, my name is Lachelle Cunningham. I am the Culinary Education Manager here at The Good Acre. So today we are going to be focusing on meatloaf. What makes this meatloaf special is that it's inspired by our Harvest of the Month ingredients. That's going to be our locally grown ground beef as well as delicata squash specifically. And then we're also going to be using wild rice. And so those ingredients are going to come together to make a delicious meatloaf. And we got a special sauce to go on top as well. Today's recipe and this video is ultimately being created in hopes to build more farm to school champions. We want you to be inspired about putting more locally grown produce and ingredients on your school menus. There's so much bounty in Minnesota that we need to be proud of, and we just need to explore the possibilities of delicious flavors that we can create with these ingredients. All right, so the first thing we need to do is prepare our squash. So for this recipe today, I'm using a delicata squash. You could use any kind of squash you really want to in this recipe because we're gonna go ahead and steam it to get it tender, and then we'll put chunks of it into our meatloaf. So now we're gonna cut down through it and quarter it. Cut down through this side. And then we're going to spoon out the seeds. We're gonna put some oil. I'm using avocado oil. You can use grapeseed oil or whatever oil you like. I like to use a high heat oil. Just sprinkle each squash with a little generous pinch of salt and some pepper. All right, now that I have my delicata squash prepped and ready to go into the combi oven, I'm also gonna put the wild rice. So I have rinsed off 2 cups of wild rice here. I'm gonna add 4 cups of water to the wild rice. Both of these items are gonna go into the steamer for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we're gonna check to see how done they are, and then we'll continue to steam them until they're tender and ready for the next step in our dish. All right, so first step, our squash got done before the wild rice did. So I pulled that out of the oven, and we just did a poke test. Make sure that the fork goes through the flesh. We're gonna set this aside and let that cool while we prepare the other aromatics in our dish, which is gonna be onion, shallot, and garlic. And then we're also gonna cut some more garlic for our sauce that we're gonna make with tomatoes and some of the squash. So I am cutting my onion down. All right, so our aromatics are all chopped up there. We're gonna crack a couple of eggs. I am doing 3 eggs. Chopping the core out. All right, I'm gonna add that right in with my aromatics because all that's gonna go into the bowl. All right, we've got our wild rice fully steamed. It took about 45 minutes or so, maybe up to an hour, depending on your steam situation, but the rice is tender and ready. So we're gonna set that to the side, and then we're gonna pull together everything that goes inside of our meatloaf. For the squash, I'm gonna go ahead and scrape the squash out of the skin. So I put 3 of the 4 quarters in this bowl. It's gonna go in the meatloaf. And then the rest of this squash, I'm gonna scrape out, and this is gonna go in the sauce. So for this one, I've got about 3 pounds of ground beef. The squash that I put, I'm gonna break it up a little bit. I've got the 3 eggs. I'm gonna see how the mixture looks in case I need to add more. I've got my aromatics all going in with the apples. I've got about a cup of cheese going in here. 2 cups of breadcrumbs. Got salt, pepper, curry powder, sage, and some cinnamon. Those are the seasonings that we're gonna put into this meatloaf. We're gonna add our wild rice. So now start mixing this all together. So this is what our mixture comes together and looks like. It's gonna be kind of chunky because you've got chunks of things in there. I'm gonna just oil the bottom of my pan. So we've got our meatloafs loafed up. And so these are gonna go into the oven for about 45 minutes or so. We're gonna get a nice crust on them. And then in the meantime, we're gonna make our sauce. And this is just a variation of a simple tomato sauce I do. So we're gonna cook down some garlic. We're going to puree some tomatoes in our Roboku. And then we are going to combine that together in a blender and make a sauce to go on the top of our meatloaf. All right, here we are with the Roboku, a great tool for any school kitchen and any home kitchen, honestly. It's a very high-powered food processor, and it does all kinds of different things. For this purpose, we're gonna puree the tomatoes that are gonna go in our sauce for our meatloaf. They can all fit in this bowl. I think I got about 7, 8 tomatoes here. And then we have the top, and the top has to go securely in place so that it's all a safety feature that it doesn't actually work unless everything is in place. And we're gonna basically puree it. All right, so I don't need it to be like a super smooth puree. It's just gonna be kind of a nice chunky puree. And I don't know how well you can see this, but we've got a nice chunky puree. That's all I need. We're gonna go ahead and do our sauce that's gonna go on top. I use avocado oil, but you can use grapeseed or any other cooking oil as I mentioned. So while the pan's heating up, I went ahead and put the garlic right in. We're gonna toast the garlic until it has a nice color to the garlic. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add in the tomatoes that we pureed in the Roboku earlier. I'm gonna add them right on top of the garlic. It's gonna take about 15 minutes or so to cook. I'm gonna put about a good teaspoon or 2 of curry powder in there. I'm only gonna put a pinch of cinnamon, and I'm gonna put a nice good pinch of rubbed sage. So I want the curry powder to cook into the sauce. Smells good. We're gonna just let it go. All right, it's time to take the meatloaf out of the combi oven. You can see chunks of apples and squash and wild rice, and it smells amazing in here. So I've got my sauce. I've got my meatloaf ready to go. Here's the meatloaf. This video is made in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's Harvest of the Month program and funded by a USDA grant, all with the purpose of helping Minnesota school districts to support their farm to school programming and their Harvest of the Month efforts.